want to twist to this because this is something that a lot of dads get tied up in. You mentioned psychological evaluations. So walk us through, what does that mean and how common are they in the state of Pennsylvania?
Well, I mean, like I said, I primarily practice in Bucks County. They are routine here. They won't hear your case unless you've had one done. Other counties, not so much. Like if you're going to Philadelphia, they're not required. But what's involved with it is they have a list of people, or you can hire someone. So you have a choice. You can either hire the one through the court, which is a lot cheaper, or you can hire a private person, which is much more expensive, and you'd have to bring that person to testify. But they do a complete background from your childhood. They're asking you questions about your childhood, your background, going through that whole family history of you growing up. And then they get into the issues related to the child and your marriage or non-marriage if you're unwed. They will interview the child. They will interview the other party. And they try to come to an agreement if they can. And if they can't, they make recommendations. They may have collateral witnesses as part of that process. So if you're living with someone like a step parent, or if you're living with your parents, because some people are doing that, they would interview those people as well as part of the process to gather as much information as they can as to what's going on and then make a recommendation. And unfortunately, some judges take those recommendations to heart. But again, I tell people don't be discouraged if the recommendation's not in your favor, because it's only one piece of evidence. You can still use all those other things I said to try to prove your case. But it's a good tool to give the background. And sometimes, like, it'll also help you identify what the other side's going to say.
Yeah, wow, that's substantial. That's in California, we have a similar process, but it ends up costing parents anywhere from $10,000 to $40,000, $50,000 to do a child custody evaluation, is what we call it. That would encompass that. So that's interesting. That in some counties in Pennsylvania, it's just automatic right off the bat. How long do those evaluations take?
Those evaluations, you could pay extra under certain circumstances to have them expedited, but usually it might take, from the time you agree to go, it might be a month or two before you get scheduled, and then maybe 4 months through the process, and then they write up a report, which could take a couple months. So that's why I said it takes a while to get in court, because until you have the report, you can't get your hearing scheduled.
Wow. Yeah. So you mentioned a point, if an evaluation doesn't go in your favor. So the common one out here in California is we have mandatory mediation before any child custody hearing, whether it be the initial hearing or whether it be a modification. So usually, depending on the county, anywhere between a month and 10 days prior to your hearing, you meet with a social worker that's going to try to mediate the situation, but in many counties will then make a recommendation. And that recommendation in California, at least, kind of is the starting point. That's where the judge is going to start, and you're going to argue off of that. So if a dad gets an unfavorable evaluation, we call them recommendations out here, or unfavorable recommendation, what are some tips and tricks for dads in terms of turning those unfavorable evaluations into smaller parts of what's ultimately going to happen in their case?
Well, I mean, every report would be different. So if it's unfavorable, you got to see how far off it is from what the goal is. It may be unfavorable because you want primary, but it's recommending joint. It might be unfavorable because you want joint and it's recommending less than that. So what I do is I go through it to see if there's any holes or facts that the other side tried to make as fact that weren't true, and then try to disprove those things when you get to court. And it's really going through in detail that report, and you're not allowed to give a copy of that report out if you're going through the one through the court system. So the client has to come in the office to read it, and they do that because they don't want it to fall in the hands of the children or be shared or used as a weapon, because it does have a lot of sensitive stuff. So if somebody had, issues in their family with their parents, they're taking that detailed backstory, and it might not be something you want to share with the children. So going through the report, spending that time to prepare. The other part of it is because these reports are used by the judges, like you said, in California, and it's, they kind of go off of that. And some judges don't, they kind of take it, oh, they did that report, so we're going to go with whatever that person said.
Yeah.
I think it's really important to prepare for those sessions. Go to those meetings with a psychologist with your exhibits, so that if they do take them, they already see the pictures. Think of it as this isn't your trial, but it kind of is. And you want to make sure that you're painting that picture in the social worker or psychologist's mind who was going to write that report by having the kind of exhibit you would bring the trial with you when you go for those sessions.
Yeah, I think that the big takeaway I take from that is that if you do get something that's unfavorable in front of the judge, preparation is key. And making sure that you're presenting your side of the story, maybe more, I'll say your side of the story more effectively than say that report is. Andrew's got a good question here, and I'll pass it to you first. So in Pennsylvania, if you get an unfavorable report, can you request another one be done?
You can get your own private report if you did the one through the court to try to show that, something was missing. Sometimes if there's an unfavorable report, you can go back to the person that wrote it because they might have misconstrued some of the facts and ask for a follow-up. But a lot of times people don't have money to do that. It costs money to get the report in the first place. So if you can try to discredit the report, sometimes that's the better option.
Yeah, that's definitely a big issue in California. When you have the child custody evaluations, you do have the ability, once the initial report that usually both parents have to split the cost for, you could in theory go out and get another report done. So it's an option, but unfortunately, an issue with the system is that the money involved usually makes it very challenging for that to occur.